fight. I can't just lay down and take it. I'm going to keep speaking out, getting my story out, getting everybody else's, because my story is a lot of people's stories. Like you said, people are not ready or afraid for whatever reason. They have their own reasons of not wanting to speak out or not able to speak out at this time. So I just feel it's my job to, speak out. And I think that God has put me in this position for a reason. And I think the reason is I would like to run for political office to try to make some change.
Well, have you decided which office you're going to run for?
I'm thinking about Congress. My congressman I've been emailing, calling his office, looking for resources and looking for him to do town halls. He's not, aside from the auto replies email saying that he agrees with what the administration is doing. That's the only thing I'm getting from him. That's the only thing I've heard from him. There's no town hall. So, I think that if I didn't vote for him, or if I did vote for him, I'm his constituent, and I feel like it's his responsibility, especially if he's agreeing with what the administration is doing, for him to contact me, contact his constituents, and let us know what it is he agrees with. And he's not doing that. So I feel like, maybe he's been in office for a while. Maybe it's
Who is this you're referring to?
Andy Harris in Maryland.
Okay. So, well, your job situation is still pretty much in limbo right now, is it not? So what's the official status? What's your official status?
Well, I was fired, and then I was brought back last week. They sent us an email saying that due to the judgment in Maryland, we were going to come back on administrative leave. And then I believe the next day, the Supreme Court or a higher court said that they didn't have to bring us back. So we received another email saying that they are speaking with the legal department to see if we are actually going to remain back on administrative leave. So right now, I don't know. Any day I can get the email saying that I'm not on I'm fired again. So.
Well, Shanice Mundell, complete success to your next endeavor. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
On What's at Stake. Well, just as Shanice's status is in limbo, so are the statuses of countless other federal workers who are anxiously awaiting court rulings. Daniel Horowitz is an attorney for the American Federation of Government Employees. He's acting director of the Legislative Political Mobilization Department, and he's fighting for the federal workers in the courtroom. Good morning, Attorney Horowitz, and thank you for joining us on What's at Stake.
Oh, thanks so much, Verna. Just for clarification, I'm not an attorney. I'm a legislative director with AFG, the American Federation of Government Employees, but we are indeed fighting in court for Shanice and thousands of other people like her who are being unfairly treated by the administration.
Okay, well, thank you for that correction. Shanice said DOJ just showed up, just sent them an email and identified that she was being fired because of her performance as a reason for her being fired. But there had been no review, no consultations with her supervisors, and now there are some jobs. I know there are some jobs where you can be fired just because, but the federal government workers are being fired in that manner. I didn't realize the federal government was one of those jobs. Your thoughts about that, Horowitz?
It's a travesty what's going on. The history of the modern civil service system goes all the way back to the 19th century, because before that we had what's called the spoils system, where every new administration would just put in their cronies, and clearly Trump wants to go back to that prior system. And one way he's going about it is by trying to fire all the people who were, quote, probationary, who were serving usually in their first year or two of employment, because they have lesser employment protections. Once you've served that probationary period, as it's called, you get a level of tenure protection, which is supposed to insulate you from political changes so that we get the best and brightest people serving in government without excessive political interference, Well, they've torn up the rule book by saying all these employees in their first year or so were unsatisfactory performers, which is ludicrous on its face, and they've tried to fire them all. So why are they doing this? Well, A, to try to reduce the size of government and its essential functions with no safeguards, and B, so they can situate their own political allies back into these jobs. So those are very bad reasons, and we're doing everything we can to overturn and get people like Sharice back to work.
Mm-hmm. Well, I noticed that they're also asking the courts, and I think they won this request, to have access to the personal data of the members at the Department of Education, the Treasury Department, and the Office of Personnel Management. Why do you think they want their private data? Do you think it's perhaps to be able to back up or prove a case or something if they, that they were not performing well on their job? What are your thoughts about that, Daniel?
Well, it's very hard to get into the head of Elon Musk and Donald Trump. I'm not sure it's a place I would want to go. But one possibility is they want to look into the political leanings and beliefs of employees, which are irrelevant to their job performance, and try to determine whom they should get rid of. And we've seen cases like that already. You mentioned the Department of Education, and there they are specifically firing people who were members or leaders of the union, of our union, actually. So this gets to their mindset. They want to remove people who were appointed based on merit and put in political loyalists who will do their bidding.
Mm-hmm. So some probationary employees that had been fired have been actually returned to their jobs, but others are not. Do you know why there is that difference?
It's a very complicated picture right now. We had some initial success in the courtroom, and there was a separate case in Maryland that your guest alluded to. But then there was a reversal at the Supreme Court, and now a lot of folks are back into kind of legal limbo. Some are administrative leave. So it's going to have to await further court decisions. The Supreme Court decision was more on the issue of what's called standing. It's a legal doctrine as to who could sue rather than the merits of the case. We believe the merits of the case are really unassailable. You can't just say that all these thousands of people were universally poor performers with no evaluation of their actual performance. Many of them, I'm sure your guests included, were excellent performers, and there was documentation of that from their supervisors. So we're going to continue to fight that case.
Well, she had just been recently promoted, so we know that she was performing well. But were all of the federal government workers who were fired, were they all probationary workers, or were there others that were not on probation that were also fired?
What we're seeing is a multi-pronged attack on the government. So it's not just probationary employees who are being fired, but in parallel with that, there are what are called RIFs, reduction in force, where they're going after employees who are already not on probation and saying their functions are unneeded. We saw that very early on with the DEI programs and civil rights programs, and now in lots of other functions that this administration simply doesn't want, like the Department of Education, USAID, many others. They are pursuing these RIFs. And then they've, in other cases, still simply fired people that they don't want, saying the president has some sort of inherent authority to do that. So there are many different things going on. All of them are very negative.
So some are actually being told to accept a buyout or be fired. It's the Deferred Resignation Program 2.0, and they were given until earlier this week, April 14th, to make a major decision. Take the buyout or get fired. What's the more prudent option, in your opinion, Daniel?
Well, it's going to depend on a case-by-case assessment, but unfortunately, people in that situation, people like your guest, are going to need legal advice and all kinds of other advice on how to proceed in each case. But it's all very unfortunate because let's not lose sight of what these people do. People like Shanice signed up to serve the American people. These are people who work in environmental protection. They are people who inspect the safety of our food and drugs. They are people who provide funds and oversight to educate our children. So they're doing all kinds of essential work for the American people. They should be allowed to continue doing that. And instead, they find themselves in all sorts of bizarre legal situations that they now have to try to extricate themselves from. And it's a tragedy. It's going to do damage for decades to come because young people who are considering careers in public service are not going to want to take this on with all the risks involved. So we need to stop what's going on and get back to what public service is supposed to be, which is an inspiring career for people like your guests and hundreds of thousands of others.
Mm-hmm. So I know you're not an attorney, but do you know if there are pro bono attorneys available for some of these fired employees?
There are a lot of lawyers taking on this work. There's also, for people who are in the union, like our union, American Federation of Government Employees, we help defend those cases. So we represent 800,000 people across the government, and we're doing our best to defend their interests using our legal staff. And of course, we don't charge fees for the people we represent.
Okay, so 800,000 employees. How many have been hit by this DOJ attack?
It's impossible to say, but it's hundreds of thousands for sure. And one of the things this administration did in the past month or so is try to drive all those people out of the union. And the way they did that is by a false and really outrageous assertion that almost all the government is engaged in national security work. Even agencies like the EPA are saying it's a national security agency and can't be union members. So they're trying to drive those people off, eliminate their union rights, and eliminate their access to representation to defend them against what the administration is doing.
You said trying to drive them out. How are they? What are they, just coercing them, or do they have some other means of forcing them out?
Well, what they've done is said all those agencies, including VA, Veterans Affairs, EPA, Department of Energy, are all national security, and no one in there can be represented by a union. So all these collective bargaining agreements, they're called, that have been negotiated over the years, they're refusing to abide by. They're refusing to collect union dues via payroll, which is their legal obligation. And they are expelling unions from federal buildings and so forth. So they're doing everything they can to make employees at their mercy, as it were.
Wow. Daniel Horowitz, Acting Deputy Director of the Legislative, Political, and Mobilization Department of the American Federation of Government Employees. Any final thoughts, Daniel?
I think one positive development is that what the administration is doing is too much even for some Republicans, and there's now a bipartisan bill in Congress, the Protecting America's Workforce Act. It's a Golden Fitzpatrick bill and has 5 Republican co-sponsors, and it would undo some of what this administration is trying to do, specifically this outrageous assertion of national security. So we're going to be working hard in Congress to advance bills like that. There's also a MacGyver bill that would reinstate the probationary employees, so we'll fight for that.
Okay, thank you, Daniel Horowitz. Up next, carrying out a campaign of extensive evil, such as the Holocaust, slavery, and the destruction of Gaza. It takes more than just a psychopath like Hitler. It could be your quiet neighbor next door or that ambitious co-worker. The Evil of Banality. Author Elizabeth Minnick joins us next. Stay with us. Back in 60 seconds.
Peace. This is your social justice calendar for the week of April 14, 2025. On Wednesday, April 16th, from 5:30 to 9 p.m. at the Metropolitan Washington AME Church, 1518 M Street, Northwest, D.C., DC area community activists and federal workers are holding a DC Emancipation Day Speak Out, standing together to fight the power, focused on protecting DC home rule, saving federal jobs and services, and supporting vulnerable DC neighborhoods. For more info, check out WPFW's website, WPFWFM.org. Thursday, April 17th is the timely webinar Lessons from South Korean Resistance to Authoritarianism and the MAGA Global Playbook, presented by the Institute for Policy Studies from 6 to 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. More info and registration can be found on ips-dc.org/events. Also on Thursday, April 17th from 6 to 8 p.m., nationally recognized writer Amanda Miller Littlejohn, author of The Rest Revolution, How to Reclaim Your Rhythm and Conquer Burnout When Overworking Has Become the Norm.
What's up, everybody? How are you guys doing? We were just listening about the recently fired employees and their representatives telling us about what's happening. Those employees were fired by the current President Trump administration for different reasons. And here we are listening their perspective, their side, what happened, what they are doing, why they are fired and stuff like that, what they experienced. So this is for information purpose only. I just came across with it this morning. It was on live radio. This is from DC, Virginia, Maryland area. So you might hear this in different places. Okay. As I said, regardless of politics, this is only for sharing information without taking any sides. So I'm just trying to bring it to your attention. What's happening, I choose to do that. Information, is very good for all sides, regardless of age, regardless of all natural and human-made differences between, humans. So I hope you will use it and to your best interest. And now this person who was fired is saying that she wants to run for Congress. We'll see if she's gonna able to do that, and then who knows? We'll see. All right. God bless wherever you are. Pray and have a good day. Bye bye. Thank you.